Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we are currently doing our Minmus flyby here, and we'll have that done quite easily, in theory. We are going to warp forward until our maneuver node here, which we're already basically set up for. We're slightly off of it, but we'll just move down, something like that. Fantastic. And we'll commence our burn here in 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1 mark. Now this is going to be a somewhat lengthy burn at about 1.5 minutes. Let's see how stable we are if we physics warp this. Reasonably. Okay, cool. So that's looking good. We're able to physics warp the burn reasonably well. I'm going to come out of the physics warp. We're slightly off of the node now. So we'll do something about like this. Cool. We've got about 15 seconds of burn left. I don't think that's worth physics warping from here. So that looks great. We need to try to nail this reasonably well. I don't know what our periapsis looks like. We can fine-tune that here in a moment. Okay, let's just get this finished up here. 0.2 meters per second is probably close enough. Okay, so this does give us an encounter. It brings back our periapsis to be here. That's fine. We can adjust that once we are in our Minmus flyby here. So yeah, this should be reasonably okay. This will do the trick. We're going to be in here for a couple of hours. Yeah, more than enough time. No moon encounter. I love it. So at this periapsis, what would it look like if we were to do a very, very gentle burn here? I mean, that basically gives us a moon encounter. Sure. In that case, we'll probably just do a radial retrograde burn on the way back in. We're just going to do a quick flyby, and we have a basically free return trajectory here. So then we would do a maneuver here. We have 600 meters per second to work with. So we just bring this down to be... this is a little bit more than what we can do. So we just have to change our timing on it ever so slightly. We have 636 meters per second. So we would need to bring this to be about... Actually, would we be better off, instead of doing retrograde here, would we be better off doing a somewhat radial burn like this? And then tossing in some retrograde like that. I mean... in theory, maybe, but this will still become a nearly entirely retrograde burn. Yeah, nearly entirely retrograde. But this timing is interesting to me. I think this is reasonably fine. We're going to be moving pretty quickly, but a 30-kilometer periapsis seems okay. We'll have a little bit extra for a reentry burn. I would prefer, though... the apoapsis is going to be up here. That would be in 26 days? So yeah, we'd have to do a pass and then come back up here. What if we just burned here? And brought down our periapsis like this? That would be a far more efficient way to do this, I would think. So we would bring this down to about... I mean, not quite that low. Somewhere around, like, 50 kilometers. And then we just do a pure retrograde burn at that periapsis to slow ourselves down. We may require an additional aero brake pass at 50 kilometers. But that's a 5.4 meter per second burn, right? We can thrust limit this down to, like, 1%. 47 seconds? Maybe like 10%. 4 seconds. 6%? Yeah, that seems decent. So something along the lines of that. And then we can do a radial retrograde burn on the way in, or just a pure retrograde burn at the periapsis. I think that would be the way to go. So that sounds pretty good. Do we need to reset these? No, we're good to go. Cool. we're in space high. We have the data that we need here. We're not going to be getting in space low over Minmus. This is just going to be in space high. That's completely and totally okay. So I think at this point, we just warp to here. Beautiful. And this is a really, really good trajectory, I think. I'm pretty happy with it. Of course, it would be bad if we were looking to get into an orbit, but we're not. So that's completely okay. Where is that big old minty snowball? There it is. Hello, minty snowball. We are now entering the sphere of influence of Minmus. So we'll grab our crew report, our temperature scan, our atmospheric pressure scan, our mystery goo, and materials studies. There we go. And we will grab that data, collect all. We will have Luke here, EVA. We'll grab our EVA report, and we're going to head on over this direction, opening up our service bay, restoring our science junior, restoring our mystery goo containment unit, conducting our material study, observing the mystery goo, keeping both of those, collect the data from both, and restore. Now we can go back in. Cool. We'll grab and board. And now we can grab these again. We'll store those exactly where they are. And that is all of the data that we can get. So we will close these doors then. And at this point, we are ready to exit this flyby. We are already done with our flyby here. Cool. So we can just warp on through and get our next burn going, would be the idea here. We are not going to change from in space high. So this is all going to be fine. Our next orbital flight of Minmus will net us a lot of data, of course. So there's our exploration of Minmus there, and we initiated the first flyby of Minmus. Fantastic. And we're going to leave the sphere of influence of Minmus and prepare for our next burn, which will be in about an hour. Technically, it should have been a little sooner than that, but this is fine. So it's going to be a pure retrograde burn. And we are going to bring this on down. 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. I'm mostly just watching our periapsis here. We want to target, like I said before, about 50 kilometers. It's maybe a little high. But we'll do a braking burn once we get there. There, that'll do. 0.0, yeah, that was pretty much right on the money. I like it. So that's fine. We're on our way back to Kerbin now. And our next step, of course, is once we arrive back at Kerbin, we are going to do a retrograde burn here at the periapsis, where we are... I don't think this is quite on the periapsis, is it? No, it's a little bit off. So about here. I want this to be quite accurate. About here. So there we're going to burn off all of our remaining fuel, which we have 631 meters per second. So we're going to do something along the lines of that. Excellent. And our apoapsis is still going to be up a little bit. That's fine. That's going to burn off most of our apoapsis here. So it's going to be a much shorter orbit, and we might take several aerobrake passes. We'll see how that ends up going. It'll certainly be interesting. It's probably, like, this is probably far more cautious of an entry than we need, and we can unthrust limit this. There we go. Probably far more cautious of an entry than we need, but after what happened to the other three, it'll be fine. I mean, we're still working on fishing them out of the ocean. They're probably going to be back by the time we get there, right? I'm sure we'll have found them by then. They definitely will have been fished out of the ocean. But Kerbals are very resilient. They'll be okay. So in we come here. And there we go. We're going to be entering the atmosphere shortly. Coming down on the dark side, huh? Yeah, it's fine. It's not ideal. Just because YouTube doesn't like it as much. It's rough on the... Yeah, this is irrelevant at this point. We're just using this for the timing, really. It's rough on the dark side is rough on the video compression. It's hard to see things. So I prefer to come down on the light side if at all possible. So we're basically at the actually, burn time of 47 seconds. We should wait here. 45 seconds. Okay, I'm not liking this heat situation here. We're going to burn now, and we're going to point pure retrograde here. And we're just going to burn off all of this speed at this moment. So we don't care about the maneuver. We're burning slightly early, but the reason I did that was because of the heat gauge that was here. It was probably for one of these photovoltaic panels, which isn't that big of a deal, but that's fine. Cool, so we've got about 200 more meters per second that we can burn off here. We have burnt off a good amount of our speed. We can see our apoapsis is dropping down nicely. Our periapsis even drops slightly, which is good. We actually want that. So technically burning it at a slightly earlier or later time might have been slightly better, but I think it's fine. We will now detach this. There we go. And our heat shield will take it from here. Fantastic. So our engine, of course, has a lot less drag due to this heat shield and our ablator on our reentry module. And at this point, the question is, are we going to be coming back? We're going to start going up fairly soon here. We're at the periapsis now. And now we're starting to go back up. So we're definitely going to have a couple of aerobrake passes here. But I knew it'd be coming in pretty spicy here. A radio retrograde probably would have been the way to go, but I wanted to feel out this. And it was definitely an interesting concept, for sure. But we're heading back up. We're going to continue to decelerate for a little bit here, and then we'll warp right on back around. We can see we lost about half of our apoapsis height after we ended our burn. We're not coming back up again. I'm 100% certain of that. Yeah, I'm definitely 100% certain that we're not going to have a second or rather a third aerobrake pass. We are going to have a second. No doubt about that one. Okay, we're back in space, and so now we're going to warp all the way on around. Can't go faster than 50x, but that's probably fine. Actually, we're not quite to the apoapsis yet. Let's go to 100x. And we're heading down to the periapsis. Cool. Down to 50x. And entering atmosphere. We're going to immediately swivel around to retrograde. And let's physics warp. Beautiful. So we're seeing our apoapsis and periapsis both dropping right now, and we're definitely not going to be coming back here. I'm pretty certain about that one. We're already under 200 for our apoapsis. Our periapsis is currently down to 45. It's a little on the high end still on the periapsis, but it's dropping pretty quickly. Time to periapsis is about to start going up. Yeah, we're definitely not coming out of this one. Beautiful. That's exactly what we want to see right now. So we managed to bleed off a good amount of speed. We definitely were coming in pretty fast from that flyby. There's no doubt about that one. Apoapsis height is in the atmosphere as of now. And we're flying. We're in flight mode instead of orbital mode. We're now below orbital velocity. All is looking good. We're going to have to come out of physics warp fairly soon, probably. Well, actually, this should be reasonably aerodynamically stable, right? I think it should be aerodynamically stable. So that's looking good. 35 kilometers up right now, traveling at about 1.8 kilometers per second. 1.7. Okay, we are definitely pulling off of the retrograde marker, so I am pulling us off of time warp so that we can hold this more easily. Excellent. We did not want to bleed off some of these parts at this moment. That would be bad. So next up, of course, we're going to continue to slow down, and we're slowing down quite rapidly. 1.3 kilometers per second. 1.2. 1.1. 1 kilometer per second. Beautiful. We're going to have our drogues firing shortly. It's definitely going to be a splashdown. Drogues are now available. And any moment now. Main is now available. Cool. SAS off. And we will physics warp on down. Excellent. I do want to unphysics warp around the time that our drogues deploy for sure. I don't like our levitating levitating node there. That's not absolutely great. So we're just going to continue to warp down. I'm going to come out of warp as our drogues deploy. There we go. And now we can warp again. Now that we know that that's not going to get torn off. I've never actually experienced the parachutes tearing that off, but I would prefer not to for the first time. The main chute deploys now. And down we go at 9 meters per second. We'll continue to decelerate a little bit, but we're mostly going to hit at a splashdown of 9 meters per second. A bit of a rough splashdown, but it should be fine. Cool. So that was a very successful flyby. No doubt about that. We're going to get ourselves a bunch of data from that. Apparently we don't have any of this. I'm not going to grab the mystery goo and material study since we have the flyby data from that, but we can certainly EVA and grab our surface sample here. We'll hop in there and we will recover our vessel. Excellent. So that's going to give us quite a bit of science, actually. Not like a tremendous amount of science, but a pretty decent amount. And then we'll see what our next exploration mission is before we decide what we're going to do next. So, how much science do we get here? We're waiting in suspense, KSP. You can do it. There we go. 253.4. Yeah, that's pretty decent. So we're at 533 science right now. I want to check in real quick here. Yeah, we managed to fish Jeb, Bill, and Bob out of the ocean. Excellent. We're going to hop into R&D, and what do we want to grab here? Precision propulsion is an interesting option. I kind of want to get advanced electrics for extendable photovoltaic panels. That's very handy. Also being able to get extendable ladders. That seems good. And then we can get one additional. Big SAS units. Access to the LT2 landing strut would be handy. I think we'll take that, and we'll hop into mission control, and let's see what we've got here. Dock 2 vessels on or around the moon. That gives me an idea of like a sort of Gemini mission around the moon, where we can also do the mission that we picked up from Robin Pattinall. That was the poles to poles to poles. So pick any celestial body and plant a flag as close as possible to both the North and South poles. So what if we sent up 2? We landed 1 at each pole, and we docked them together, either before or after we do that. And we would need to transfer crew as well. Okay. That's an interesting idea, for sure. So we'd send up 2 identical craft. That would both be landers, and this has to be moon, right? Because I was just thinking, well, maybe we should do Minmus. It would be less Delta V to land on, and we haven't gotten the science yet. But this is definitely the moon. Okay, so we would open up our lander craft. So that would be our moon lander here. This thing is a monstrosity and must be killed with fire. And we're going to do so. We're going to immediately get rid of this entire booster segment. That's gone. Now we're going to come over here. This remains the same for the moment, although I'm going to ditch the LT1 landing struts, and we'll go with the LT2 landing struts instead. Beautiful. And we would put those on here. That just gives us a little bit more space to work with, right? So there we go. Excellent. And then we would grab our fuel adapters. Boom, boom, down to Rockamax size. I would like these to be white, and we'll use the ESA pattern for our X232. There we go. Actually, we'll just go with white. I think that fits a little bit more tonally. So that'll be fine. And then this is, of course, going to have a poodle on it. So that goal is to get us to the moon. Now, this doesn't have any sort of docking on it, and We'll also need to do some crew transfer. That's fine. We can do that. I do want to put on some struts here so we don't have that wiggling problem. So we would have quad struts coming from, like... Actually, I would want to put them... Yeah, that's just up inside there. Oh, that put it there. Okay. I'd like to have them coming from here onto there, like that. Cool. So something like that to hold that together. And then we'd need a TD25 decoupler. Boom. And then I would use, like, a pair of big orange tanks to lift this thing. Something along the lines of that. And then this would, of course, have a mainsail on it. Now the question is, what is our thrust to weight looking like? Well, I would like to put on some tail fins on here just for control purposes through the atmosphere. I wish that there were additional colorations of this, but I guess that's what KSP2 is for. And 1.12, so we would definitely want some lift-off assist. So I think we'd just heavy lift this very simply with SRBs. Something around there, and then we would use, like, Pollexes. Something along the lines of this. Very basic and gets the job done, but we would top these, of course, with liquid fuel tanks, hemispherical tanks, as we have been. We need... Is this the right size? That looks like the right size. Cool. And then we would run the fuel tanks in like so. And then we would strut these. And it would be something like this. And something like this. So, this is going to cost us 70,000. What is our pay for this? It doesn't actually say. I'm going to save this, and we're going to have to launch 2. So that's 140,000. Now, our pulse to pulse to pulse is considered medium. So we get paid 50,000 for that. Okay. And I don't know how we would measure the distance to the North Pole. I don't know if there's something built into the game for that, but we can look at that. And we would get paid how much for this? 66,000, 66,000, 44,800 as an advance, which we already got, and an additional 87,000. Okay, that would definitely be profitable. Barely, but it would be profitable. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Okay, so beyond that, is there anything else that we want to do here? I'm going to check real quick in our contracts to see if we can loop anything else into this. Not really. We do have a contract here from 4T4T for the moon outpost. Does not return, but that doesn't really fit into this particular mission. So I think that we'll hold off on that one. Which, by the way, we've already missed the bonus on that. I'm just going to delete the bonus from the contract list. We've already missed it. It's fine. So that's okay. And we would need to launch 2 of these. They do need to be able to be docked. So how are we going to dock these? And they'll have to get into polar orbits, which is reasonably fine. Okay. Docking. We can probably ditch this parachute. In fact, yeah, we can definitely ditch this parachute, especially if we're not going to target bringing this stuff back. And in that case, we should ditch our heat shields here. That would be wasted space there if we're not going to target the possibility of bringing these back. And that means, of course, that we'll need to rerun this, but that's okay. We can do something like, I mean, something just like that, but it didn't actually attach. So, like that. Cool. So that'll do. And then our docking port would, in theory, go up here. Now, it's going to be a little on the awkward size. And we also don't have any... Wow, I can't think of the word at this point. RCS. We don't have any RCS on this. So that's another potential thing that we might want to do. We only really need RCS on one of them, though. And so that's definitely an interesting thought. A docking port junior actually doesn't look horrible there. So we can put on some RCS. Just a small RCS tank. Like that. We don't need much of it. And that's just to control us in the docking. And then we would put on RCS thruster blocks, something kind of like this, but I don't love that positioning. Maybe down here. I don't know. That's probably going to be a little bit less efficient now that I think about it. We'll do this, and I think that'll be fine. Something along the lines of this. This is actually slightly cheaper than what we had before because we ditched the heat shields. So that seems fine. Okay, we need to do our staging here for sure. So this thrust weight is 1.63. That's basically perfect. And then this would get combined together like that. And then this is combined together. Yeah, this should not be combined together. So we would definitely want to get our drogue chutes up here. There's actually only 2 of them. And then this would be separate. So it would be something along the lines of this for the staging. Yes, that looks correct. And of course, we'll have to bring both of our crews, including our criminal crew. So that's going to be exciting. Oh, Jeb, Bill, and Bob actually lost all of their experience. Exciting. That's fine. It should be okay. What could possibly go wrong with landing a 0 experience crew on the moon? I'm sure it'll be fine. Actually, it should be. You know, do we have access to the MechJeb parts for automating at least the smart ASS? That's all we're going to use MechJeb for, is the smart ASS. But if we had that, that would be something that we could do. That's the KER there. We have the computer flight unit. I don't think we have the MechJeb parts unlocked yet. This is also part of KER here. So, yeah, I think that we don't quite have that. Fascinating. Do we want to bring any deployable science? At this moment, actually, no. This mission is not a deployable science mission. We'll get there, but this isn't it. So for now, it's time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to launch 2 of these out to the moon, and we'll need to dock them up in orbit of the moon. It doesn't matter what orbit we are in initially, but we're going to need a polar orbit. So that's going to be interesting. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, James, Shadow Wolf, and Lohan80, Rogue Corvid, Kintogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Anna the Elephant, Soccerman12UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video. And as always, I will see you all next time.